great question comes to my mind after listening to Jim speak. It's the same question that popped into my mind after Ellen sent me an email that said, hey, would you like to talk this little bit, Jabberwocky, about random acts of kindness? And Jim posed it. What's really the source of this? Well, when I got Ellen's email and I finally acquiesced, I thought of three things. I thought about grapes, I thought about my dad, and I thought about Google. Google was the easiest one, went straight to it. I typed in random acts of kindness. I recall hearing that first 15 years ago, 20 years ago or so, I don't remember, as the antithesis to random acts of violence. Senseless, awful things in human experience that make us wonder, what in the world is happening? And it's a way that we can intentionally do something in response to those senseless things. And what I found stopped me. I only got to the first search result. It was a website called the Random Acts of Kindness Foundation, randomactsofkindness.org. That stopped me. I thought, oh, I gotta see what that is. Maybe that'll tell a little bit about where this stuff comes from. But it stopped me again when I saw the banners, one of which says home, and the next one says kindness ideas. I don't buy that. Random acts of kindness don't need a list of projects to get into. Random acts come from something like the experience you guys had together or the experience that Ellen had. They come from someplace else, not from... Random. That was random, wasn't it? So I went back to my experience, and the person in my experience that is without a doubt the kindest person I've ever known is my dad. He came into this world in a twin set of random acts of kindness. It was January 6, 1910, in the rural wilds of southern Ohio on a homesteader farm. This is before electricity, this is before automobiles, this is really back when southern Ohio in the hills was really remote. There was a trader, a horse trader, that came through the county with some regularity, a guy named Mr. Meldick. And Mr. Meldick happened to visit in my grandparents' general area on the 6th at the same time that a snowstorm visited, shut everything down. Meldick was in a wagon, and you just couldn't move with the wagon. So my grandparents invited him to spend the night, a random act of kindness in response to a random act of nature. Well, they were sitting around enjoying the after-dinner conversation when my grandmother went into labor. Mr. Meldick was immediately made irrelevant to the evening, and when he woke up the next morning, he found an extra mouth in the house. My dad was born that night in a snowstorm with Mr. Meldick there. He had to stay for 2 days because the snow was so bad. When he left, though, the family lore is that he took a $20 gold piece, put it in my dad's little tiny hand, and said, start that boy off trading horses the right way. My dad's middle name was Meldick, Dale Meldick Massie, named after this gentleman who in this random thing had connections of people and good things happened as a really a different basis than those senseless things that we have question marks about. That made me think a little bit more about that consistent kindness that I saw my dad through his 89 years. And there wasn't much randomness about it except for the circumstances that presented themselves for him to express that kind heart that he had. That made me think of grapes. In the New Testament, there's a passage of Scripture that says the fruit of the Spirit is this one. Let me do it again. The fruit of the Spirit, pardon my rudeness, is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. The images of grapes, it's not the fruits of the Spirit. It's a fruit that comes in different packages. And when you pluck that off, that's not something I had to make a list to do. That's something that sprang naturally out of the fullness of the Spirit of God, the Spirit of humanity, and the Spirit of love in people's hearts. to random acts of kindness coming from wonderful, full hearts.